Hey, it's Coach Reeves. Today I'm going to show you how to convert standard form to vertex form by completing the square. Some of this you've seen in the past. We're just going to build upon it and we're going to get it done. Alright, so we're going to take baby steps at first and then we'll get it going. Alright, so they're going to ask you, it says complete the square by finding the C value. This is my A value, this is my B value, this is my C value. How are we going to find it? Here's a little formula to help you out. It says we're going to say B divided by 2, and then we're going to square that quantity. Okay? So B divided by 2, and then we're going to square that. So half of 12 is 6. 6 squared is 36. We're going to speed this up. We're going to say negative 10 divided by 2 is a negative 5. Negative 5 squared is 25. Now notice I already had a plus sign waiting. Okay? Because whenever you square a value, we're going to put it in parentheses and we're going to square it. And a positive times a positive is a positive. A negative times a negative is a positive. Your C value will always be positive, or else we're messing up somewhere, okay? So now we're going to do this. It says we're going to factor the perfect square trinomial. We're going to get into this a little bit more depth, but you've done some factoring in the past. But when you factor, we're going to write it as a perfect square trinomial. So what we're talking about is, I teach my students to look at the back sign. That tells me my signs are going to be the same. If that's a plus sign, that means your signs are going to be the same. And that's what we're going to deal with today. Perfect square trinomials. They're going to be the same. In this case, they're both going to be pluses. So when I set up my parentheses, the signs are going to be the same. They're both going to be pluses. Okay? We break down the x squared. The x squared is going to be x times x. And then we have to break down this 81. And this 81 is going to turn out to be 9 times 9. That's what goes in the back end. Okay? Now, why are we calling this perfect square trinomials? Because they're perfectly the same. They're identical. And we're going to write this as x plus 9. Because there's 2 of them, we're going to write it as x plus 9 squared. That's what we're asking you to do. So in this one over here, all right, the quick way to do this, remember how we did this? We went from here, we said that half of 12 is 6. That's something we can think of, all right? Because look, half of 18. What is half of 18? 9. That's what's going to go in the blank. So just maybe if you can catch the pattern, what is half of 26? Half of a negative 26 is negative 13. And so we can do it by doing just this right here. That speeds it up. There's your final answer. Now I'm going to show you the process so just you trust me. But right now we would say that plus sign, because it's a plus sign, says my signs are the same. This says they're both going to be minuses. So in my parentheses, my signs are going to be the same. They're both going to be, they're going to be the same, and they're both going to be minuses. We break it down as to x times x, and 169 is a perfect square. It is 13 times 13. 169 is going to end up being 13 times 13. But instead of writing it as 2 parentheses, we can write it as 1. Okay, you need to get comfortable doing that to speed this up. All right? So the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to complete the square. All right? So what we had, let me go back. We had an open hole. We had a blank right here. we had a blank that we had to figure out what that value was. We had to find the C value. We had to complete the square. So right now, I don't have a blank. Now we're going to do something a little unorthodox, but we're going to create a blank. We're going to ask you to put an equal sign here, and we're going to ask you to move the 12. I know that you already have an equal sign in the front. I'm going to ask you to ignore that for just a little bit, and then we're going to put it back there at the end. Okay? Trust me, this will help. This will be easy to do. I'm going to move the 12. I'm going to have minus 12 minus 12. That will leave me with x squared plus 8x plus blank. I moved my 12, so now I have something to complete. I have a blank now. I have a minus 12. We're going to say equals a negative 12. Okay? When we do math problems and we try to move stuff to the other side, notice what we did. I went minus 12 to both sides. Okay? Well, if I'm going to add something to this side, I'm going to have to add that same amount to that side. To keep the equation equal, whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other. Okay? So now, this looks very similar to the problems we did at the very beginning, like number 1 or number 2. I'm going to ask you, this is my B value, this is my B value, I'm going to ask you to take half. What is half of 8? And hopefully you tell me that it is a plus 4, a positive 4. Okay? Now this is my C value. Remember how we found our C value? We said half of B, and then square this. We need to square this, which will give us a 16. And whatever we put here, we need to put here. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to bring down, watch this, we're going to bring down an x, parentheses, squared. What we just did, this fast, really, really quickly, we have factored this into this. It's what we did on the previous page. All we're really doing is going to take half of that B value and bring down the x and the parentheses squared. Negative 12 plus 16. Negative 12 plus 16 is 4. I'm going to ask you to bring that 4 back home, back over here. We're going to bring it back over there. We're going to go minus 4, minus 4. I have x plus 4 squared minus 4. But now I want you to bring the y equals back down. That is vertex form. So what did I do? I created a blank. I moved the 12 to the other side and I created a blank. If I have a blank on one side, I must have a blank on the other side. How did we fill the blank? We took half of B and then we squared it. Half of B and then we squared it. And then we brought down the x and the parentheses squared around it and then moved it back home. Let's try another one so you can see what's going on. I need to create a blank. I'm going to put an equal sign and I'm going to move the 37 to the other side. I'm going to go minus 37, minus 37. This is gone. I will have a blank there now. I will have x squared minus 16x plus blank equals negative 37 plus blank. So all we did was we kind of dropped this, we kind of delayed this or ignored this for a little bit, but I moved my 37 to the other side so I can create a blank so I can complete the square. Now, how do we fill the blank? This is my B value. We need to take half of this. What is half of negative 16? Negative 8. That is half of it. But I need to square it. And a negative times a negative is a positive. So negative 8 times negative 8 is a positive 64. Whatever I put on one side, I will put on the other. Got it? Now we bring down, I need you to bring down the x and the parentheses squared. This is the factored form of this trinomial. This is the factored form. Equals negative 37, positive 64. That's going to leave me with a positive 27. Next step, I need you to bring this back across. How do I bring it back across? We're going to go minus 27, minus 27. This will cancel. That's going to leave me with x minus 8 squared minus 27. But I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask you to bring down the y equals now. That is my vertex form. Just by looking at this, I can do this. I can say my vertex is 8, negative 27. There's your vertex. Axis of symmetry, just like we've been doing, my axis of symmetry would be x equals 8. Simple enough. All right, let's try some more. This one is going to be a little trickier. You got to be patient with me, but this time I have a number in front, okay? The other problems didn't have a number in front, they just had an x, okay? So, trust me on the process. Step 1. I need to put an equal sign. I need to move the 1 to the other side. How am I going to move the 1 to the other side? We're going to go plus 1, plus 1. I get 2x squared minus 8x plus blank equals 1 plus blank. Same thing, just move it to the other side, create a blank. All right? But now I want to get this 2, I want to get the x squared by itself. I need to move the 2 away from it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor the 2 away. I'm going to say factor out a 2. For these two terms, I'm going to factor out the 2. What's that going to leave me is x squared minus 4x. Now, this is where Coach Reeves is a little bit different, okay? Which is what I call the bounce method. If I have to factor out something, I'm going to have to bounce. And you're going to hear me say this. If you factor, you must bounce. And I'll explain that in the next step, okay? So this problem, I keep the 2 coming down. Keep the 2. But now I'm going to ask you, we need to fill in this blank right here. Remember how we filled in the blank? This is my b value. What is half of negative 4? Negative 2. I need to square it. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. But this is where the bounce comes in. I need to take that 2 and I need to multiply it. I need to bounce it. I go 2 times 4 is 8. What just happened? I still took half of b. I took half of b and got a negative 2. And I squared it. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. But since I factored, I'm going to bounce. I'm going to say 2 times 4 is 8. I have to bounce it. Now what do? I bring down the x and the parentheses squared, just like we've been doing. Equals, what is 1 plus 8? 9. I'm going to ask you to bring the 9 back home. Bring the 9 back over across. We're going to go minus 9. Minus 9. That's going to leave me with x minus 2 parentheses squared minus 9. Oh, don't forget your 2. Sorry. And now I'm going to ask you to bring down your y equals. This is vertex form. This tells me that I have a stretch by a factor of 2. My vertex is going to be 2 comma negative 9. But that's vertex form. Let's try, that bounce thing can be tricky, so let's try another one. Step 1, equal sign. Move the 11 to the other side. That is always step 1. You have to create the blank. We have to have a gap over there to fill. So we're going to go plus 11, plus 11. We have 3x squared plus 24x plus blank equals 11 plus blank. So far, same old, okay? Now, I want to get the x squared by itself. I want to get the x squared by itself, so I factor out the 3. I factor out a 3. That leaves me with x squared plus 8x plus blank equals 11 plus blank. Now, since I factored out, I'm going to have to bounce. If you factor, you must bounce. So I bring down the 3. I bring down, what is half of 8? What is half of a positive 8? Positive 4. What is 4 squared? 4 times 4 is 16. But here's that thing. If I factor, I'm going to bounce. 3 times 16 is 48. You see what happened? Half of 8 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. You square it. But then since I factored, I'm going to bounce to 3. And I'm going to get 3 times 16 is 48. Bring down the x. Bring down the parentheses squared. 11 plus 48 is 59. What's the only step left to do? Well, there's a couple. I'm going to move the 59 back home. I'm going to go minus 59. I'm going to go minus 59. I have 3 x plus 4 squared minus 59. And then I bring down and put the y equals in front. There's your vertex form. Okay? Hopefully, if you need to, you can back it up, pause it, look at it. Hopefully it's not too confusing for you. All right? One last thing. It says, identify the vertex and the axis of symmetry after converting. So we're going to, hey, this will be the easy type. This doesn't have to be bounced. It doesn't have a number in front. Step 1. Move the 13, minus 13, minus 13. I get x squared plus 6x plus blank equals negative 13 plus blank. I need to fill in my blank. So I'm going to take half of 6. What is half of 6? Half of 6 is a positive 3. But I need to square this. What is 3 times 3? 9. Did we factor here? No, we didn't factor, so we don't have to bounce. So if this is 9, this gets to be 9 also. I bring down my x and my parentheses squared. Negative 13 plus 9 equals a negative 4. I bring the 4 back across. I go plus 4, plus 4. That's going to leave me with x plus 3 squared plus 4. I'm going to ask you to bring down the y equals. And then they asked me to find the axis of symmetry, the vertex and the axis of symmetry. Well, by looking at this, my vertex is going to be a -3, 4. And so my axis of symmetry is going to be x equals whatever number's in this spot, -3. All right, that's how you complete the square. That's how you convert from standard form to vertex form. Left you some problems to practice on. If you have any questions, just ask us, email us, we'll help you out. Good luck.